Thank you for listening to this new episode of the Business of Fun podcast. I am your host, Dave Wakeman. My guest today, for the third time, is Richard Howle. He has created a brand new business called RH Insights, and we are going to talk about that. Before I talk to you about my conversation with Richard, though, I want to point you to my website. It's davewakeman.com. I have put up a little customer pathway there in the shop, so you can check it out. You can sign up for the newsletters like Talking Tickets, which you can also get directly at talkingtickets.substack.com. The latest piece that I sent out was a experiment called Show My Thinking. I have been, it's about the Super League and rugby league in Australia and the UK. I was looking to see what angles you found interesting, what you were thinking about. It's an experiment. That's the nice thing about having the newsletter, the podcast, the Slack channel, which you can sign up at in the link in the show notes, is that I am allowed to experiment and try out new things to figure out new ways to create value for you and for the people I serve. So that's the new thing. But check out the Talking Tickets Substack at talkingtickets.substack.com. You get your podcast episodes first. You get things like show my work. I play with the thing all the time, but the big thing is that we try to create interesting value, new ideas, and ways for you to create fans for life. My guest today, though, Richard Howle. Now, Richard is familiar because we've had a couple of really great conversations. This third one is also really, really cool. But Richard started a brand new business he calls RH Insights. He has a tool he calls Rise. He has created a GPT of Richard, which was pretty funny because we talked about how he created this in a 15,000 word stream of consciousness session with his AI. We talked about how he developed insights. We talked about some of the things he learned, because going back and reviewing all the work you've done has makes you approach your work and your career from a different angle. We talked about the importance of context. We talked about data. We talked about bringing more humanity to the work. We talked being customer focused. We talked about marketing and marketeers. We talked about the UK ticket market and how open and competitive it is. This is a wide-ranging conversation. It was great to talk to Richard. If you've been around for a while, either listening to the podcast or reading the newsletter, you know how much I love him. So it was great to have a chance to talk about his new business. So here's my conversation with Richard Howle on the Business of Fun. All right, I would like to welcome back Richard Howle to the Business of Fun. Richard, what's up? And I don't know exactly which number episode this is we've done. This is at least 3, maybe 4.
I think this is our third, Dave. Hi, good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's great to see you. I have not seen you in far too long, so it was really this was like a great opportunity to get even just to talk to you, not on the podcast, just in general. So it's always my pleasure to see you. But we have business to do. That's what this podcast is about. It's about business and fun. And you have a new business venture that you're working on, and that I thought was pretty cool. So I was like, let's talk about it so people can understand what it is. So you introduce your new business idea to us, because I already know what it is.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I kind of launched it on LinkedIn. And within 2 minutes of launching it on LinkedIn, the first person to contact me was Dave Wakeman saying, Hey, Richard, do you want to come and do the pod? So thank you for your very early support. I've set up a ticketing consultancy for the live entertainment sector. So basically, it's encapsulating everything that I've done and learned for the last 25 years. And I'm there to help producers, promoters, venues, rights holders maximize their revenue and optimize their ticket sales. Really, I suppose is what it is in a nutshell. And in doing that, I have created my own AI. I've built my own GPT, which is, I suppose, the best way to describe it is a robot version of myself. And that is, I've done that to really help me dig in to the sales figures a bit more and to really dig out those insights and really help come up with useful and actionable insights for my clients to work with.
First of all, I think that you are being far too humble in selling yourself, but that's the difference between the American and the Brit.
That was
Because
a really early. That was a really early on thing. Working with the AI, I did actually say to him at one point, said, "You have to remember, I'm British, not American." When it
yes,
was getting all very, very hyperbolic.
yeah, no, I will definitely toot your horn for you because I feel like you are one of the sharpest and just most innovative people in ticketing. So that's you can put that on your website even. You
Thanks.
can. But what was really cool was the AI that you're creating of you, and um, you know. I don't want to say I'll be a skeptic in talking through the AI with you, but I think what my skepticism of AI comes from the people just want it to be like set it and forget it tool. And as we talked about before we started recording, your point of view is about using AI to create more humanity, which I thought was like a much more interesting point of view to take. But the thing that stuck out to me when I was looking at your announcement and then looking at your deck was that you started by training your own AI with a 15,000 word stream of consciousness. What did you talk about with the AI? Because I'm
Uh,
like, I
yeah,
was like, this caught
I
my
kind
eye
of
right away.
the thing is, if you were just to type into ChatGPT, you know, how are my sales going? Even if you uploaded a sales report and said, how are my sales going? It would give you an analysis, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't have any context. There'd be no context to it, and it would be a generic analysis. So, you could do that now. Anyone could go in, they could upload their files and say, do this. But I wanted something. What I needed for the business is I needed it to have. I needed the AI to understand everything I know, all the
Hmm.
nuance, all the context, all the variables, all the variations, and all the patterns. And this is what normal looks like. This is what normal is abnormal. And so I kind of needed it to know everything. And I kind of thought the best way for it to know everything is for me to tell it everything.
Yeah.
So I literally sat there and I actually did it by telling it my career. I
Hmm.
literally started off saying, I started selling tickets on the phone in the late 90s, and this gave me a great insight as to the decisions that people take when they're buying tickets, because that's the thing you don't get
Yeah.
anymore. People go on on the internet and you don't know why they've chosen that, but when you're
Hmm.
talking through someone a ticket sale to someone on the phone, they may not even know they know they want to go to the theater, but they don't know what show they want to see.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
start having that conversation with them about, well, do you want a musical or a play? Do you want a comedy or a tragedy? And you
Yeah.
talk through it and you hear their thought process is working. And then, okay, how much are you looking to pay? Well, I'm looking for something top price because I'm taking my clients
Yeah.
and I want to impress them,
Yeah.
or it's a first date, or I'm on a budget. So you kind of begin to understand the thought process, and that early part of my career selling tickets on the phone, I really think has just set me up throughout my whole career, because you really get into the mindset of how people of the thought process that
Hmm.
people go and buy tickets through. And although, however much we automate things or bringing technology into ticketing, actually buying a ticket is a very human process. It's an emotional human experience. It's not like buying a loaf of bread, because you buy a loaf of bread because you need something to eat. Buying a ticket to an event is a gateway to unlocking an experience, a
Hmm.
live experience. And we all know that the emotion and the everything that comes around a live experience, it's a very human thing. And actually, if you look back, sorry, the long answer here, if you look back to the
No.
pandemic, uh, and everyone's thought, oh, live entertainment's dead, everyone's Netflix. Well, that wasn't the case at all. As soon as live sport or live theatre or live music came back, it boomed, because people missed that interactive experience with other people, because actually you can't replicate that live experience. So buying a ticket is access to human emotion. So, and to enable uh, you to understand about selling tickets, you have to understand what the human emotions, what the human thought process was going through. So that was a very long answer to the first part of the first part of my journey. So I literally started off talking about what I understood about how people bought tickets and the thoughts that they went through buying tickets. And all that was learned from when I used to sell
Yeah.
tickets over the phone. And then I kind of moved through my career, telling the computer about writing down in this Word document all the different nuances, the market context, all the different jargon that we use in our industry, what it means, the marketplace context and how it's changed and how the internet changed things and how that changed booking patterns, etc., how API changed things. And I literally went through all the stages of my career talking about all the things that I've learned about selling tickets in my different career and why. And I say it was just a stream of consciousness. It was just a blah, 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 blah. It was full of typos. It wasn't formatted because who cares? It's just the AI reading it. It can sort that out. And I wrote this down, and it took me a few days to write it down. It's quite a cathartic process. And I uploaded it into ChatGPT, and I said, "Okay, this is my story. Ask me questions about it." And it asked a load of questions, and they were intelligent questions. But because I know ChatGPT can be quite lazy, I said, "Right, now read it again and ask me more questions." And it read it again and asked me a load more questions. And I took all those questions and I downloaded them. And then I started on another Word document, going through answering all the questions and kind of building out more examples and more examples. And I uploaded those in and said, right, here are the answers to your questions. Have you got any questions about this? And we went through about 3 or 4 iterations of this. And so by the end of this, it had a really good understanding, and it was the questions it was asking me were intelligent. It kind of, okay, it gets it. And it was asking, the more questions it asked, the better the questions were. It was like, okay, it's understanding this. And so we got to a point where it then took everything I knew and it kind of formulated it into logic, into computer logic. And that's a weird experience, seeing your brain translated into computer logic. And kind of from there we built what we called insight cards on about 20 different areas of ticketing, everything from revenue management right through to house composition and audience feel, because feel of the house and atmosphere, because that's an important element of ticketing that you can't answer on a formula. You can't the formula about how it feels to be in that audience, how a house is dressed. So all these things we kind of set into insight cards, and from there we started turning them into rules. If this happens, this happens, this happens, and this happens. And then we are building up. And then I had some really old dummy data that I was putting through. And I was getting it down. I taught it how to read the figures and what to look out for. And then I was asking it to come up with some insights. Look at these figures, come up with insights. And what are you spotting? And put different shows up in different genres. And how does that compare to that? And it was good. And it was pretty good. And I got to a stage where I said, right, you've got 10 or 12 different shows you're looking at now, historical or kind of 20 years ago. From what you're looking at now, tell me when people start buying for Christmas. And it came up with a really good, from this, it was all evidential back. Looking at this, people generally start booking for Christmas at this date. I can't remember what it said now, but it was like, this is really, really good. And so we kind of had all that. And then it was time to start building the GPT. And so, if you're a certain level of subscriber onto ChatGPT, you can go and create your own GPTs, and I started, refining those rules and building up. By this time, I created a whole dummy set of data to test on. I created Made Up the Musical, which was just a typical musical. And actually, that was really annoying. It actually took me much longer to make up a dummy set of data that could kind of make sense than I thought it would. I thought I'd just knock this off in a day, and a week later I was still building this bloody dummy data set, because I was trying to have as much detail in there as possible. Not only what our wraps were and what our advance was, but also where those wraps were falling, what price bands it was falling into, which channels were selling it, what discounts were doing it, and then matured performances off that and stuff like that. So it was quite a sophisticated data set. And so then uploading that and then kind of running that through the API with the rules, and then you talked about humanity. One of the key things is that I didn't want it to sound like ChatGPT. Now, I wanted it to sound like me, and so was also as part of the process, I did lots of style tests. So this is what I write. This is how I talk about sales figures. This is what, and I created kind of what I say me and the GP, you form quite a relationship with it. we created what we call gold standards. Pardon?
Do you have a name for your GPT?
It's called RISE. It's the RH Insights Solutions Engine.
I know, but don't you have get like a little nickname for it or something?
Only your little SHIT sometimes. And so it's a gradual iterative process. And, to be honest, it's still not finished. I'm still refining it. I'm still working on it, and it will never be finished, because actually it will constantly learn. And as I get more clients and start using real data, it will learn and evolve from there, like we as humans do. We are always learning, and it will constantly learn.
Context is always changing,
and context is always changing. Yeah.
And actually,
one of the things listen, it can spit out numbers. It can understand and read numbers really fine. One of the things I am constantly refining the rules on is the nuance of things. So, in my dummy data sets, there's PR activity that happens, because I have notes, there was an appearance on the TV or there was a press feature and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's about getting it to understand, relating what's happened in the sales to that piece of PR. And it might be that landed there, or, we started, in the dummy data, there's a start of a meta campaign. And it started, in the notes, it says start a meta campaign. But then it's explaining that actually the results of that meta campaign may not be seen for 3 or 4 weeks in the sales, and it's all that kind of nuance. Mm-hmm. And so I'm constantly going in and testing things, doing a test. Right, that's not quite right. Right, what rules do we need to write to change that? And the code in which the rules are written, kind of in the last month has trebled in size. It's kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That is sort of the way that anything. Again, I told you I would not ask you any tech questions because I don't know the tech. But what I do understand is that that's the way the tech things work. Is that they start growing exponentially the more you start adding.
And it's something you've got to be careful of, because actually the more code you load into it, the more error prone it is, and then the harder it is for work. So you have to try and keep the code efficient as well. So you kind of have to keep refining it, and I will often open up a different instance and say, just check this code, check that this is all making sense and it's not conflicting, because it can get messy as you're changing things.
Oh, absolutely. And I only remember that because I know that Microsoft builds all of their Windows off of old code, so it's always working through, and then Apple starts fresh every year, and that was why they were saying the speed is different, which could be completely BS, but that's at least the way I remember it. What I wanted to ask, though, is you said you were talking about the stream of consciousness, and how we went through iteration after iteration after iteration. And I'm curious because I know that what it sounds like to me, if you're like me, which I know you are, because I can pretend to be well, I don't, Richard, man, it's the first time I ever met you, but that would be completely bogus. Is that sometimes I forget what I know. And I'm sure that through this process, you had to remember all these things that you didn't even remember you knew. What were some of the more surprising things that you learned through the process? Because as much as you were teaching the AI how to think like you and what to look at, I'm sure that it helped you rethink some of the things that and some of the things that are important to you. And it's so what were some of the surprising things that you learned through this process?
To be truthful, yes, I had forgotten stuff, and when I did it, I said, I'm sure I've left stuff out, and as we've gone through, I've gone, I've remembered, I've remembered this, and we've had to go back and change stuff. So you shouldn't be afraid to forget stuff. But one of the, I guess it was, it is a period of reflection about looking back, a lot about how the landscape has changed since I first started working in ticketing in the 90s, about how technology has really changed the landscape about how people buy tickets, and about the information that we as professional ticketers and our clients, our producers and promoters, the data and the information that they get, and how and how really kind of looking back, 25, 30 years ago, we were flying a bit blind. Really, we would
Yes.
do stuff. We would put out some adverts and in the newspapers or on the telly, and not really have any way of particularly accurately measuring that success. And I guess the thing that's changed most is really the trackability of everything, and how everything is much more measurable. And um and actually, for me, this is one of the most important elements of the new business, is because ticketing really has never lacked data, and certainly it doesn't anymore. We have more data than we know what to do with, and actually that data can become blinding. And I
Hmm.
think I see part of my role is to try and find the clarity behind all the data. What's the story it's telling? What's this data actually telling us? What does this mean, and what can we do with that? What we can see that this delivered that and that delivered that, but in the take a step back from a macro point of view, what does that actually mean in the context of our campaign, in the context of our sales campaign? And I kind of see that's what my role is doing. And in a sense, that's why I wanted to build the AI, because I wanted it to help me to cut through some of that, to
Yeah.
help pull out what's important from all these mounds of data that we've got. And that's the important thing about the AI. The AI isn't a tool for my clients to use; it's a tool for me to use to better able service my clients.
So there's two things about this, like, ticketing has always had data, and it's even if you didn't have it in spreadsheets that you could easily manipulate and look at. Um, what you said though is it can become blinding, and the kind of the matching set of that is that it's easier to track. But my question is that always good? Because what I find, and this is where I'm curious for you, because you talked about, the AI is helping you sift through the data and look at it. Having more data and making things easier to track, I don't necessarily always find that to be a good thing, because I think what it has done is it's created an environment where people are not as curious about the people that they're trying to reach as maybe you and I were when we were younger, right? Because again, the same way you were talking about, like understanding who they're taking, like what their budget is. I've used those stories all over. Like, when I started in nightclubs in the mid 90s, what kind of gin would you prefer? Right. And understanding all that concept, that bundle of emotions that went into that decision. And then when I started selling tickets, especially like to like VIP people, like understanding that goal that oh, I'm trying to really win this new piece of business, and but my budget's $100. Well, that's not going to help, bro. And then like you being able to have that conversation with the person, and then all of a sudden, instead of $100 sale, you're making a $500 sale, and the person on the other end is like super ecstatic because they feel heard, they feel all these emotions, and they've been successful because they probably have wowed that client that they're trying to win over. So I guess that was a long way of getting to the question. It's like, going, just because we have more data, right, and you're working through all this data, does that make the more data better? And if not, like, how do you figure out what matters and what doesn't? Because I find that has made people a little bit lazier because they think that the data set and the computerized tools are just going to make it set it and forget it.
I think you're 100% right, Dave. And I have certainly
Well,
fallen
that
out
makes
with.
this not that much fun. There needs to be
I,
disagreement.
I have certainly fallen out with marketeers in the past,
Mhm.
either because I've exposed that their campaigns have not really delivered everything that they said it was going to do. But more importantly, particularly with digital marketing, I have sat through some really, really dull and detailed presentations
Yes.
about return on investment and click through rates and cost per million and blah blah blah. And I'm often the one that says, yeah, and literally really detailed and dense stuff, and which I'm sure are designed just to confuse the clients into
Mhm.
spending more money. And I've just looked at the bottom and said, okay, after all that, it's only sold £700 worth of tickets.
Yeah.
So actually, it is about trying to cut through
Yeah.
some of that stuff. But equally, we are asking our clients to spend a lot of money in investing in different forms of advertising, and there needs to be accountability for how that money is spent. And but more importantly, accountability is that actually we want to sell more tickets. So what is working? What works? If we having that data, if that data helps us optimize our campaigns more, then that's a good thing. Actually really helping us to refine those campaigns and really understand that delivering sales there because we did that is a good thing. Or equally, learning that, do you know what, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? How do we change that to do that? And then but a big part of what I do isn't really getting into the detail of we ran that campaign and it sold this many tickets. That's what the marketeers do. That my job is really to kind of say, what is the need here? Looking ahead, what are the challenges that we've got ahead, or what are the highs we've got ahead? Looking at our sales figures here, in 5 weeks' time, we've got what looks like it's going to be a bumper week, and we know historically that that's a bumper week. What can we do in our campaign to maximize the revenues in that week? Or conversely, do you know what? Looking ahead, this week is looking really, really low. What can we do to make sure that we're mitigating some of what's going to be a poor week? Or do you know what? We always know this is a really, really poor week. Let's just try and hold our fire.
Let's make sure it's not a historically poor week.
So you're right. I really try not to get into the detail and the specifics of that particular meta campaign and those kind of click-through rates. I let other people do that. I try to take a step back and look at the bigger pictures. What are we trying to achieve? What are our financial objectives? What are our commercial objectives for this? And what's the best way to get there? And just to help guide our producers and promoters and venues into helping them understand, to give them context for which they are making those marketing decisions in.
Yeah. So it's interesting the way you put it, because you're separating, and I may be wrong. So if I am, I forgive. A, smack me down, and B, forgive me. But you're talking about the marketers here on one side, and then like the whole decision making aspect of the ticket sales on this other side. And I guess I'm curious is like, because I know that you understand that like you need the marketers to create the self-fulfilling, to fulfill the goal. How do you have those conversations though because you're talking about making much bigger strategic decisions in a way that helps people make better decisions? And I'm thinking through it in a way meant that like, I think sometimes it's marketing gets pushed over as like just this like kind of like must-have tactic, and tickets is sometimes undervalued as well. So how do you elevate in these conversations the two things? Because like, look, if nobody's in the seats, you ain't making any money, and if you are not good at marketing, you ain't filling those seats. So how do you help make these things? Because a lot of time, and I think as I voice this, there's an overemphasis on the financialization, and like sometimes like just the like bottom line numbers, like, well, we can't possibly spend this extra pound on this advertising thing because like that would make our budget bad. But if it brings that one pound extra spend per whatever makes you 15 extra pounds, there's a good return on investment. But like, it's hard to have those conversations. And I know that's like a real big part of what you do, or unless I'm wrong.
I'm a big believer that ticketing is the execution of marketing. So I don't see them as two separate things. I think they are one big thing, and ticketing is at the end of the marketing funnel in that sense. So so
you're like way more in line with me than I thought.
Yeah, my previous answer made me sound as if I was. My previous answer made me sound as if I was in conflict with marketing. It's only in conflict with bad marketing. Actually, the collaboration between ticketing and marketing is really, really important. Although I've said ticketing's at the end of the funnel, it's also at the start of the funnel. It's also helping kind of, as I said, direct where that marketing can go, and kind of this is the issue we've got. Marketing, how do we solve it from an advertising point of view, from an advertising point of view? But then how can ticketing support delivering that as well? So it isn't two separate things. It is one thing.
Yeah.
And the best marketeers are the marketeers who understand ticketing, and the best ticketing people are those who understand marketing. And when I started off, I started off at very early in my career, I joined a marketing agency, and I saw that a lot of my role was translating um, marketing people to ticketing and ticketing people to marketing. So, obviously we were, as a marketing agency, we were working with lots of box offices, and the box offices really took a dislike to marketing people, and it was and marketeers would think that box office people were really obstinate and difficult to deal with, and often my job was just to be the go-between and to translate between the two, because actually everyone wanted to achieve the same thing. Everyone wants to sell the most amount of tickets for the most amount of money, and everyone has their role to play in that. And it's just about understanding why these people are doing this, which you may think is making your life difficult, but this is what they're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
How can we get together to make sure that we're achieving what we want to achieve, but we're working together? And so that's been a big part of my career, is trying to join those two elements together. So I'm not trying to put marketing against ticketing.
No.
The best teams are where marketing and ticketing are in alignment and enjoined and moving and pushing together.
Well, as we were going back and forth too, I realized it wasn't even the finance department that I was so much taking aim at. It was actually this pervasive idea, and now I know exactly what it was, because as you explained it, I was like, "This is what it is," and it's that you see marketing as the ultimate thing that drives all the revenue, right? Like if you don't do a good job of marketing, people don't know you're there. They don't care that you're there. They don't have a desire to buy. And like some people just feel like they can brute force sell anything. And that's the challenge that I was like I was looking to frame, because I think that like you can't just sell somebody something they don't want, right? And that's where a lot of this like rampant discounting comes from, and like some of these other things. So yeah, so I agree, and I was you said it as well as I could have said it, where it's like everything is the marketing is should be the ultimate driver, because it's how you stay closest to your customer. It's how you understand what your customer wants, needs, desires, like what need you're filling. And then it's like you also understand how much you can charge them, so they give you as much of their money as so
Exactly.
it's like all the beautiful things.
And particularly when you're selling live entertainment, which is, it is a discretionary spend, but it is an important spend for the person who's spending it, because
Yeah.
Inevitably it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition for the leisure pound. They don't have to come to live entertainment. They could go to the cinema. They could watch Netflix. They could go to a restaurant or a bar. There's lots of competition for the pound. So actually, it's a really human experience. And so you're right. You have to be close to them. You have to understand what they're doing. You have to understand what makes them tick, and you have to put as few barriers up as possible. And often one of the biggest barriers in the sale process is ticketing. So actually, how do we make our ticketing better? How do we? I followed in your esteemed footprints, and I went and did a keynote at the Ticketing Professionals Conference in Australia, and the title of my speech was, why the essence of my speech is, why do we keep pissing our customers off?
Yeah.
Why do we do things that we know our customers find irritating? And there are lots of things within that we know the reasons why that happens. There's no way to treat our customers, who don't experience it in other forms of retail, and for them, it's another form of retail. And it drives me crazy the way we put up barriers to prevent people buying tickets, and it's a campaign of mine to try and think about ticketing from a customer's point of view. And I go right
Actually, a
back
theme that's run through all of our conversations here as well.
Well, it is.
Like it's like from the very first conversation, because you were one of the first guests, and I remember it because I quote it all the time. You were going like, in what other industry would you set up the thing so it's best for you, not for the customer?
Right.
And this is like years later, the same theme is still there, which is still true.
It's still true, and it drives me up the wall. And it drives me up the wall because I've worked in ticketing all my life. I really care passionately about it, and I don't like it when people don't like ticketing. But I don't like it when, someone says they work for Ticketmaster and they get booed. It's like, no, Ticketmaster are a great company. They are really, really good. They are giving people access to see their favorite sports or their favorite
Yeah,
artists and stuff like that. They are helping facilitate what is a really, really good thing.
yeah.
Um, and they're not meaning to be obstructive. It's just
Yeah,
that they
it's
are.
a system thing. Yeah, it's a
It's
system
like,
thing.
so
It's
I
not
just want to
those
help
people.
Ticketmaster and all the ticketing companies get better and stop being so obstructive, because
Yeah.
actually they should be loved. They are providing access
Hmm.
to these fantastic events that we are so lucky to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. I had somebody from Ticketmaster go, "Oh man, like like about something like you don't hate Ticketmaster," and I was like, going, I don't. I was like, I don't hate anybody, but I do understand there's systemic issues, and I think what I like about this conversation around putting the customer first is that it's like an essential thing, right? Which is, if these people don't love the event, like love the experience of buying the ticket, they're not going to go, right? If you don't help people see what you're putting on and know how amazing it is, they're not going to go. Right? If you don't make it seem like it's a better use of their time and money and attention, they'll find something else. So like always putting, and again, these things are the most incredibly emotional, like life affirming things in a lot of cases that you can do. So the thing is like they should be like so easy to sell. But people sometimes they at least in my experience, you find either like people get really comfortable doing paint by numbers work, or they'll just check boxes, or they get a little jaded about dealing with people, and it's unfortunate because it's like the renewable energy that I always have had about it is that like going, I don't know who I'm going to get a chance to talk to and meet today. So like to me, it's very exciting because I'm like going, my God, who am I going to get to see today? Who am I going to get to meet today? Who am I going to like? What am I going to find out today? And that's like where that's where putting the customer first is always like driven me because it's like to me it's exciting, and that's what I want everybody to see.
And I think that's why, the UK ticketing market is very different to other places in the world. It's a very competitive market.
Hmm.
It's quite an open marketplace. We have a lot of ticket agents operating, and that's why actually I think in the UK it does work and it is competitive, and that is because if you're a ticket agent out there competing with six other ticket agents or 10 other ticket agents to sell a ticket, actually, how are you going to get the business? You are going to get the business by trying to put the customer first, and that's where a lot of innovation has come through from the UK
Yeah.
ticketing market. And I know they started off in the US, but to Datix, the reason why they became such a huge success over here is because they came from a customer centric point of view. Actually, what is the quickest and easiest way for people to buy tickets? And they tried to cut through those barriers. And innovation has come through competition to get customers, and you get customers. If you're competing for customers, you have to deliver the best for customers, and
Yeah.
and that drives innovation.
Yeah. My belief, and again, I'm sitting here in Washington D.C., so I'm at the heart of this. Is that like my belief has always been that like more competition is better. Yeah, like so many situations um, it's systemic situations try to eliminate competition. But like you said, the competition helps us find innovation. It helps us discover more information about people. It helps us make better things for people to fulfill their needs. So that's one of the things I've always appreciated about the ticketing environment in the UK is that there is competition, right? And so then like people have to figure out how to be better at marketing. They have to figure out how to better like serve those customers. To me, it's just very exciting. Um, so let me see here. Let me make sure we've touched on everything here. But there was one other question I wanted to ask you about. So now when I say it, or do we call it Rise or do we, because I know it's RH has got your initials in it. So it's
Right.
Rise is the tool. Okay. Right. And then you said there's the insight cards, right? Because we spent a lot of time on the stream of consciousness and how we trained it. But you said there's 20 different areas of the insight cards. What are some of those areas? Because that's what I definitely wanted to ask about that because I was curious. I was like, going, 20 areas, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is, and now I suddenly can't remember what any of them are. Gosh,
That's my
pricing,
job to forget
sales.
things.
It's still to do with pricing and velocity, and oh gosh, I really, honestly, Dave, I can't remember. You should have asked me this before we started recording. I don't look them up for you. Uh,
that's
I counted them through. There's 20 different areas, 20
that's
different
okay.
kind of
Well, I'll make
elements
it
of thinking.
easier for you. At the end, we can I can put them in the show notes, so I can put some of them in the show notes. So we'll make because there's no gotcha questions here. Well, all right. So then, let me ask you one final question then before we wrap it up. So you trained your GPT on you, right? It talks
Yeah.
like you, thinks like you, it looks at the world like you. You found things that are you didn't even realize you remembered or forgot. It helped you clarify your thinking. It was very affirming. Um, you have a customer centric view of the world, and you know the power of ticketing with your new business, right? What do you hope that like you're able to get across to people? Like it's a vehicle, right? For like you to like impact more than just the companies you work for, like you work specifically for, because any time you do a situation like this, you hope that like you're adding some value there. What is it, like one or two things that you want to get across to people? Like
Uh,
what are
I would
important?
I would hope that I would uh, encourage my clients not to just do things because that's the way they've always been done. To think about what they're doing. Why are you doing this? Why are you structuring it this way? Why are you working with these people in this
Mhm.
way? Are you doing it just because they say this is how it needs to be done? Well, actually, let's have a look and see what other alternatives out there. So I want to challenge people to think about differently and think about it from, as we've just talked about, putting the customer first. Because
Yeah.
actually, if the customer's satisfied, then we're going to sell more tickets. If the customer's happy, if the customer can easily buy tickets, then they'll do so, and it won't be a barrier to entry. I want to break down barriers, and so yeah, thinking about things differently and
Yeah.
about how we do things, and trying not to do things because that's the way that we've always done them.
Right.
And listen, I'm not talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of things that we do, and we do them for good reason, and they are the
Mhm.
right things to do. But are they always right in every single occasion? It's not just let's not be lazy about things. Let's think about things fresh. Let's
Yeah.
think about well, our objectives are as trying to sell an event, and what our customers' objectives are, and what their desires and wants are, and how do we make those two things meet.
I I think that's great, because I think what has happened is in too many situations we trained ourselves to think of all those environments and then situations that we're in like an algorithm as well. Whereas, like as you said, the chatbot, the GPT becomes better with context. We should be willing to apply context to every situation that we came to. There's certain things that'll always be the same, but there's so much that's going to be unique and different. And I think the cool thing about always is getting the chance to talk to you, either like this or just in general, is like what's true and what's going to stay true, and then what's going to need to be different. Because too often decisions are made by like this is just the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to challenge people to go like, well, what would have to be true for this to remain the same? And I think that's what was really cool and came through in your deck and through like some of the stuff that we have gone back and forth about today. Where can people find you on the internet besides
Uh, so, they,
LinkedIn?
so LinkedIn, Richard Howle, Howle on LinkedIn. The company is called RH Insights. We're also on LinkedIn. I think you and I are one of the people who still only go. We're only a few people who go on X. So I'm on X at Richard Howle. Uh, so
There's
yeah,
still pretty good ticket community on there, but it's like mostly Americans and brokers.
yeah. So I don't really post on X much these days, but I'll always dip in and have a look at it. So, but yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me, I would say, and also find my website www. How many W's is that? rhinsights.co.uk. rhinsights.co.uk.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for doing this again.
That's great. It's great to talk to the king of ticketing once again.
Hey, I'm going to ride with that thing forever. Don't worry. Thank you,
Hey,
BBC.
so the BBC said it. It must be true.
It must be true. Tell me what you thought of my conversation with Richard by sending me an email to my name. It's dave@davewakeman.com. Check out my website. That is davewakeman.com. You can find the store, which has a real set of items there that kind of laid out in a way that they make sense. There's a starting point and an ending point. It was a little bit of a rethink of how I do things. Get the Talking Tickets newsletter if you don't already, but if you're 46 minutes into this podcast, which is what you are if you're listening to this, you probably already get it, but you can find it and tell your friends and colleagues to get it at talkingtickets.substack.com or on my website at davewakeman.com. 46 minutes in, I know you dig this, so do me a favor, rate and review the podcast. It helps me get great guests. It helps me continue to reach more people, and it encourages me, right? I am a sucker for positive feedback, so please do those things for me. Like I've been saying for years now, I couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I will talk to you soon. Take it easy.